The rain on the spaceport roof tapped like soft drumming. Leo sat alone at a metal table, chewing on the last of his fries. The sky above was dark with smoke from arriving ships. People walked quickly, heads down, avoiding the storm and each other. But Leo's eyes were stuck on something else, someone else. She stood outside the diner window, motionless, a thin girl, with gray skin and glowing purple eyes. Her white hair was wet and stuck to her face. She looked like a statue, but her eyes never blinked. They were locked on his food. Leo blinked, unsure what to do. She looked young, maybe his age, but not human. She had no coat, no shoes, and her arms were crossed tightly around her chest. She looked cold, scared, and starving. He looked down at his fries, only a few left in the box. He shrugged. Walked outside, holding the box out to her. She didn't move. Rain hit his head, rolled down his neck, but he didn't care. He held the fries closer, hoping she'd understand. Finally, she snatched the box from his hand and backed away fast. She stuffed the fries into her mouth like she hadn't eaten in days. Leo didn't speak, didn't move, just watched. After finishing, she stared at him again, then growled, low and soft, like a small animal warning a bigger one. Leo raised both hands to show he meant no harm. He backed into the diner and sat down again, trying to understand. Who was she? The waitress walked by, looked outside, and frowned. "That thing again," she whispered. "Been standing out there all day." Leo looked at her, confused. "She been here long?" he asked. The woman nodded. "Showed up 2 nights ago. Hasn't spoken a word. Always watching, never leaves." That night, Leo returned to his cheap room at the Traveler's Inn. The room was small, just a bed, a light, and a locked door. He was drying his hair when he heard it. A soft knock, then another, slow and quiet. Leo opened the door just a crack, and there she was, soaking wet again, standing with her head down. She didn't speak, didn't move. She looked like a child. Left in the rain, Leo's heart squeezed tight. "You ... Want something?" he asked. No reply. She didn't step forward, but didn't leave either. Then came the growl again. Low and strange, but it wasn't angry. It was more like sadness, like a lost dog begging for shelter. Leo looked down the hallway, empty. He sighed, opened the door wider, and stepped aside. "Okay, just for tonight," he said. She walked in silently, dripping water on the floor. She sat down in the corner, curled up, and wrapped her arms around her knees. He handed her a towel, which she took gently. Still, not one word. He tried asking her name, where she was from, who she was. But she only stared, silent, like her voice had been stolen later, when he turned off the light to sleep. He could still see her eyes glowing faintly in the dark. They didn't close, didn't blink. She just watched him, silently. Leo turned on his side and whispered, "Weird day." She made no sound. The next morning, he woke up to the sound of soft footsteps. The girl was cleaning the floor with the towel. Careful not to break anything. Leo sat up, confused. "You didn't leave?" he asked. She looked at him, then slowly nodded no. It was clear now she had no home, no place to go. Later that day, as they walked through the busy spaceport, people stared. Some gave dirty looks, others whispered. Leo noticed that whenever someone came too close, the girl would take a step closer to him and let out that strange soft growl again. One man bumped into Leo by accident, and before he could speak, the girl stepped in front of him, growling louder now. The man backed away fast, holding his hands up. Leo was shocked. She wasn't just following him, she was protecting him. That night, he gave her another small box of fries. She smiled for the first time, just a little. Leo smiled back. He didn't know who she was, but something deep in his heart told him this was only the beginning, because the way she looked at him wasn't normal. It wasn't thankful or friendly. It was something deeper, something ancient, something dangerous, and soon he would learn. She wasn't just hungry for food. She was hungry for connection, for trust, for a reason to stay alive, and now she had found him. Leo sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the strange girl who now lived in his room. She hadn't spoken a single word, not even a whisper. But every time he moved, she followed. Every time someone looked at him too long, she growled low. Not loud enough to cause panic, but just enough to warn them. People had started to notice when Leo walked through the spaceport market. Whispers followed him. Is that her? Why? Is she with a human? Isn't that the creature from the bulletin? Leo didn't understand it fully yet. He only knew that she wasn't normal. And she wasn't safe, but not because she was dangerous to him. She was dangerous to others who got too close. One morning, Leo woke up early to find her standing near the window, watching the sky. The rain had stopped, and soft sunlight touched her silver-white hair. He asked her again, "What's your name?" She turned her head but didn't reply. Instead, she walked over, sat beside him, and held out something. It was the empty fries box, carefully folded into a neat square. She placed it in his hand like it was a gift. Leo laughed softly. "You really liked those, huh?" She tilted her head and gave the smallest smile, then pointed to herself, then to the box. His eyes widened. "Fries? That's your name?" She nodded slowly, as if the word had meaning. He shook his head, grinning. "No way I'm calling you Fries." She gave a soft growl, not angry, but playful. He thought for a moment, then said, "How about Mira?" She looked at him, then nodded again, slower this time. Myra. It was later that day. Leo went to buy food from the stall near the gate. As he waited in line, a rough-looking man approached him. "Hey kid," the man said. "You traveling with that thing?" Leo looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" "The alien," he said, voice low. "She's not one of us, not even legal, you know." Before Leo could answer, Mira stepped in. Her growl was sharper now, filled with warning. The man stepped back in surprise. "She yours, or what?" Leo put a hand on Myra's arm. "She's with me, yeah." The man walked away, grumbling, but didn't push it. Leo looked at Mira. "You okay?" She didn't speak, just gave a small nod and stayed close to his side. That night, Leo walked into a supply shop and asked about a translator. Trying to talk to a silent type? The vendor joked. Leo smiled politely. Something like that. He bought a small ear link and handed it to Mira. She stared at it, unsure, but placed it in her ear, then waited, silent as always. "Can you try to say something?" Leo asked. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her face twisted, not in pain but frustration. She looked at her hands, then back at him. Leo could see it clearly. She wanted to speak, but something stopped her, like a lock on her voice. The next day, news began to spread through the station. Posters were hung on walls, flashing in red. "Escaped bioengineered subject warning. Unstable." Leo froze when he saw the image. The face on the poster was hers. He yanked the poster down and hid it in his jacket. Mira stood nearby, her body tense. He didn't tell her what he saw, but she already knew. They returned to the room in silence, and Leo locked the door. He laid the poster on the bed. "Is this you?" She looked down at it, then slowly sat on the floor, hugging her knees. Tears filled her glowing eyes but didn't fall. Leo sat beside her. "Why are they after you?" Still no words, just silence. Then she pointed at the collar around her neck. It blinked faint blue lights and hummed softly. Leo leaned closer and noticed small alien writing on it. "Can't take it off?" he asked. She shook her head slowly. He tried pulling at it, but it didn't budge. As he stared at the writing, he realized it wasn't just a collar, it was a control device. Something someone else had put on her to track her, control her, maybe even silence her. Leo stood up, his heart pounding. Someone had created her, caged her, and now wanted her back. But why? And how far would they go to take her? At that moment, the door behind them creaked. Someone had tried to open it, but the lock held. Mira stood up instantly, growling low and deep. Her eyes glowed brighter than ever. Leo whispered, "They found you." Mira looked at him, and for the first time, her lips moved, not fully, not clear, but enough. She whispered one word through the translator. Run. Leo didn't ask questions. He grabbed his jacket. And her hand, and together, they vanished into the shadows of the night station. Behind them, someone kept knocking at the door, harder each time, but they were already gone, and this was only the beginning. The rain was falling again, harder this time. Like the sky wanted to drown everything below, Leo ran through the alleys of the old station, pulling Mira behind him. Her bare feet made soft slaps on the wet ground, but she didn't complain. She didn't speak again either, not even the word run. They slipped past flickering street lamps and broken vending bots. Shadows moved behind them, soldiers in black armor, scanning with red lights. Mira pulled Leo down into a drainage pipe just in time. Above them, heavy boots stomped across the metal walkway. Leo held his breath, heart racing, when the noise faded. Mira looked at him with her glowing eyes. She was calm, even with danger all around. Leo whispered, "Why are they chasing you?" She didn't answer, but her hand tightened around his. He didn't know what she was, but he knew she trusted him now, and he wasn't going to leave her. They spent the night in an old storage crate behind a scrapyard. Leo gave her his jacket, but she pushed it back to him. She didn't care about the cold. She only watched the stars through a hole in the roof, like she was waiting for something that never came. The next morning, Leo snuck into the lower market alone. He needed food, water, anything to keep them going. He bought 2 protein bars with the last of his credits. When he turned to leave, a screen above the market flashed red. It showed a live feed of a man in uniform speaking to a crowd. "Subject 17 has escaped containment," the man said. "She is extremely dangerous, highly advanced, and must be returned." He raised a photo of Myra's face, cold and expressionless. The man continued, "Any citizen found helping her will be punished." Leo looked around and saw people nodding, whispering. He slipped the bars into his jacket and rushed back to the crate. When he arrived, Mira was gone. Panic hit him like a punch to the chest. He shouted her name, ran through rows of broken machines, calling out. Then he saw movement on top of a metal tower nearby. Mira was there, sitting still like a ghost, watching the screens from far away. He climbed up, out of breath. "Why did you leave?" She turned to him, her voice barely a whisper. "I was made." Leo froze. "Made? Like ... in a lab?" She nodded slowly. "I wasn't born," she said. "I was built to protect." Leo sat beside her, shocked. "Protect who?" he asked. "I don't know," she said. They erased it. Her voice was soft and strange, like music that had been broken and glued back together. She held out her arm, showing him the collar again. "They used this to stop me from remembering." Leo touched it carefully, noticing tiny circuits pulsing under the skin. It was fused into her, part of her body. "I'll get it off," he promised. Mira looked away. "You can't." But Leo didn't believe that. Suddenly, they heard shouting below. A patrol had entered the yard, scanning everything. Mira's eyes flared with light, and she crouched low. Leo whispered, "Stay still." A soldier climbed up the tower ladder, flashlight in hand. As he reached the top, Mira leaped without warning. Her body moved like lightning fast, sharp, silent. She kicked the man in the chest and sent him falling hard. He hit the ground with a crash and groan. The other soldiers raised their weapons. Mira grabbed Leo's arm and jumped with him from the side of the tower. They landed in a pile of old cushions. Barely avoiding injury, Mira pulled him up and ran. Again, faster than before, after what felt like hours. They reached the edge of the old district. There were fewer lights, fewer people, and more silence. Leo collapsed near a broken shuttle frame, out of breath. Mira knelt beside him and touched his shoulder gently. "You okay?" she asked, voice still soft. He nodded, then looked at her. "You're not a weapon," he said. "You saved me." Mira's face changed, like the words meant something she had forgotten. "I'm not a weapon," she repeated, slowly, like she was testing the idea. "I'm Mira." For the first time she smiled fully, not just with her mouth. But with her eyes, Leo smiled back. But it didn't last long behind them. A quiet hum grew louder. A drone hovered in the sky. Blinking red, it scanned them and flew off. Before they could hide, Leo stood up. They know where we are now. Mira stared at the stars again. I have to show you something. He followed her through twisted ruins and broken gates. Finally, they reached a hidden cave behind an old Cums tower. Inside, something strange glowed. An old alien ship, covered in dust and vines, but still pulsing with light. This was my beginning, Myra said. Leo stepped closer, his hand brushing the metal hull. He felt warmth, like the ship was alive. What is this place? He asked. Myra looked at him and said, It's the only place they couldn't reach me. And as the hum of engines returned in the distance, Leo realized they were out of time, but maybe, just maybe, this ship held answers, or a way to finally break the chain around her neck. Either way, they had to try. Inside the hidden cave, the air smelled old, like metal and time. Leo walked slowly, his hand brushing the wall of the strange ship. It was quiet, too quiet, but not dead. The lights inside the ship were still glowing, soft and warm, like the heartbeat of a sleeping creature. Mira stepped forward first, not afraid, not even careful. She moved like she had been here before, like this place remembered her. Leo followed close behind, the floor beneath him humming gently with every step. Mira placed her hand on a control panel, and something shifted. A door opened with a slow hiss, revealing a dark hallway with blue lights crawling along the ceiling. This ship, Myra whispered, was mine. Her voice was stronger now, still soft, but sure. They entered a round room filled with floating screens. Each screen flickered on as they stepped in, showing fragments images of her, Mira, in a white chamber, surrounded by scientists. Mira hooked to machines, her eyes closed, her body still. Mira standing tall in armor, protecting someone whose face was blurred. Leo stared at the images, frozen. What is all this? He asked. My past, Myra said. What they erased. She touched one screen, and it played a recording. A voice spoke, calm and cold. Subject 17 is designed for emotional loyalty and physical defense. Her instincts will tie to the first being who shows her care. Leo stepped back slowly, the words crawling into his mind like cold hands. So ... I gave you fries, he whispered, and you ... I bonded, Mira said, not by command. My choice. Leo didn't know what to say. It wasn't just about food or kindness. She had been made to protect someone, and when he gave her fries, something deep inside her lit up. A part of her purpose woke up. Suddenly, a loud beep echoed from the ship's console. Mira rushed to it, hands flying across controls. They found the cave, she said. They're jamming the ship's signal. Leo looked around. Can we fly this thing? No, she said. Not yet. The power was too weak, systems too old. But there was something else, something buried under the ship. She led Leo through a hatch and down a ladder. Below the ship, under layers of rock and cables, they found a black chamber. Inside it sat a suit shining armor, sleek and alien, not a weapon, but a shell like it was made for her. I remember this, Mira said, her hand trembling. She touched the chest of the armor, and it opened like a flower. She stepped inside, and it sealed around her. Light ran across her body, and her eyes glowed bright. Not just purple now, but gold and white mixed together. Leo couldn't move. She looked like something out of a myth, not a machine or soldier. She looked like a guardian. She turned toward him, her voice deeper now, steady. They want to shut me down, she said. But I was never just a test. Outside, the sound of engines grew louder. The enemy was landing. Leo grabbed a metal rod from the wall, ready to defend. Mira placed a hand on his shoulder. You don't need to fight. He looked up. Why not? Because now, she said, I remember how to protect. She walked outside the cave as the first drops of rain hit the ground again. 3 black armored soldiers spotted her instantly. They shouted, raised weapons, but before they could fire, she moved, fast, silent, graceful like wind cutting through steel. She dodged bullets like they were falling leaves, disarmed one with a twist, the other with a single strike to the chest. Leo watched from the shadows, stunned. He had seen fighters before on news, in simulations, even in training vids. But this was something else. Mira wasn't attacking to kill. She was fighting like a shield, not a sword. Her moves weren't made of anger. They were made of purpose. The last soldier dropped to his knees, not hurt badly, just outmatched. Mira stared down at him, her voice calm. "Go back," she said. "Tell them I'm not theirs anymore." The soldier nodded and scrambled away. She turned back to Leo, and her armor folded away. Piece by piece, her face was sweaty, her breathing heavy, but her eyes still glowed. Leo stepped forward. "What happens now?" She looked at the stars above. "Now I lead them away from you." "No," Leo said quickly. "We stick together." But Myra shook her head. "They want me, not you. If I stay with you, you'll die." Leo stepped closer. "You're not a weapon. You're not a project. You're Mira." She stared at him for a long second, then looked down, whispering, "I don't know who I am without someone to protect." Leo gently took her hand. "Then protect yourself first." The rain started falling harder again. Mira looked up at the sky, then back at him. And for the first time, she didn't growl. When he got close, she leaned her forehead against his and closed her eyes. The bond between them wasn't code or program or science. It was something deeper, real and alive. But far in the distance, more ships were coming. More danger, more hunters. And the time to run again had already begun. The city was burning behind them. Fires lit the sky like orange stars, and the sound of gunships echoed through the metal canyons. Leo ran beside Mira, ducking under falling pipes, pushing through smoke. Mira's armor flickered in and out, too damaged to stay active, but her eyes stayed sharp. She didn't speak much now, only moved with purpose, like every second counted. They had escaped the cave, barely, but the ships kept coming faster now, angrier. The commander had changed tactics. They weren't trying to capture Mira anymore. They were trying to erase her. Leo coughed as they reached the edge of an old scrapyard. Piles of junk and twisted ship parts formed a maze around them. He stopped to catch his breath. "How long until they find us again?" Mira didn't answer, but pointed to a dark tunnel ahead. "It's not a place," she said finally. "It's a memory." The tunnel was narrow and wet, filled with old wires and oil stains. Mira moved like she had been here before. Leo followed, unsure of where they were going. Every few steps, Mira would stop, touch the wall, listen. Not for sound, but for something else. Something only she could feel. At the end of the tunnel, they entered a dark chamber deep underground. There were no lights, no doors, no voices, only silence. And a strange warmth in the air. Mira knelt beside a wall panel and pulled it open. Behind it was a round crystal, glowing faint blue. Leo leaned forward. "What is that?" "A heart," she said. "Mine." He stared at it, confused. "I don't get it." Mira looked at him, her voice almost shaking. "When they built me, they hid one piece, one backup core. If I was ever destroyed, this would bring me back." Leo swallowed hard. "So if they break you, this keeps you alive?" She nodded, but only once. He stared at the glowing crystal, feeling cold. "You came all the way here to die?" "No," she whispered. "I came to live, even if it means running forever." Leo reached out and held her hand. "You're not alone anymore," he said. "I'm not letting them take you." Before Mira could speak, a low hum filled the room. The crystal flickered, and a projection appeared, an old recording. A scientist's voice played, tired and broken. "If Subject 17 finds this, it means she broke free. I want her to know. I never wanted her to be a weapon." The screen showed a younger Myra smiling, laughing, running through a training field. Leo looked at her in shock. "You used to smile like that?" Mira didn't answer, but a single tear slid down her cheek. The recording continued. She was more than the others. She learned kindness. She learned loyalty. And if she's still protecting someone, then I did something right. The screen shut off. And the silence returned. Mira stood slowly. Something in her eyes had changed. She wasn't just running anymore. She was remembering. And something deep inside her was waking up. Suddenly, a blast shook the ground. Dust fell from the ceiling. And red lights filled the tunnel behind them. "They're here," Leo said, standing. Mira grabbed the crystal and placed it in the small chamber in her chestplate. Light ran across her armor. "Brighter than before. This time," she said. "I protect you first." They ran again, through the maze of the scrapyard. But this time Mira didn't hide. She moved straight toward the attackers, fearless. A drone flew overhead, scanning the area. She raised her hand and shot a beam of energy that cut through it cleanly. Leo ducked behind a pile of parts, watching in awe. She wasn't fighting like before. This was different. She wasn't defending herself. She was guarding him. Every move was faster, stronger, more focused. 2 soldiers charged from the side. But Mira moved like a shadow. She spun, dodged, and knocked them out cold. No killing, no cruelty, just precision. Leo wanted to help, but every time he tried to step in, she pushed him back. "Stay behind me," she said, and he did. After the fight, silence returned. Mira stood among the wreckage, breathing heavily, her armor cracked in places. Lights dimming again, Leo walked up to her, placed his hand on her arm. "You saved me," he said. She looked at him, tired but steady. "I told you," she said. "That's what I was made for." "No," Leo said. "It's what you chose." The words hit something inside her, something soft. For a moment, her glowing eyes dimmed, and her lips trembled. She looked like she might fall, but she didn't. She nodded once, small and slow, behind them. The fires were still burning, and the sky still filled with smoke. But in that moment, there was peace. Only for a second, but it was real. And far away, in a room filled with dark screens, the commander watched them in silence. His face was cold, but his eyes were thoughtful. He leaned forward and whispered, "Let her think she's free, just a little longer, because the real trap hadn't even begun yet." Leo didn't sleep that night. The firelight from distant buildings flickered across Myra's face as she sat silently in the shadows. Her armor was cracked, glowing in places, and her eyes were fixed on the stars. He could tell she was thinking, not like a machine, but like someone remembering a dream she once believed was real. He wanted to speak, but the air between them was full of something heavier than silence. Mira finally said, "They'll never stop." Leo didn't argue. He just sat beside her, tired and bruised, but still with her. He whispered, "Then we stop running." Mira looked at him, confused. "And do what?" He pointed toward the mountains beyond the ruins. "There's a man I know, old engineer. He helped refugees escape during the last war. If anyone can break your collar, it's him." She didn't answer right away, but she stood, steady and strong again. That was all the answer he needed. They left before dawn, walking through ash and wind. The road was quiet, too quiet. Mira kept looking behind them like she felt something watching. Leo noticed it, 2 shadows that didn't match the light, small echoes that came from no footsteps. The mountain trail was long and steep, but Mira didn't tire. Her strength was strange, not endless, but focused. Like every move had meaning. Halfway up, Leo tripped on a broken rock and fell. Cutting his hand, Mira knelt beside him, pulled out a small tool from her armor, and healed the cut in seconds. Leo stared at her. "How do you know all this?" "I was made to heal," she said, "and to destroy. But I only remember the healing now." They reached the engineer's cabin by nightfall. Hidden deep in a cliff cave, the old man, Cray, opened the door with a rifle in his hands. His eyes narrowed when he saw Mira, but Leo stepped in front of her. "She's with me," he said. Cray sighed, lowered the weapon, and opened the door wider. Inside, wires and machines filled every corner. Cray had once worked for the government, but escaped when he saw what they were doing to experiments like Mira. Leo showed him the collar, told him everything. Cray listened in silence, then sat at his workbench. "This tech is locked deep," he muttered, "not meant to come off. But I've seen this design before. If we fry the core, it might break the hold." Mira stood still as Cray worked, tools buzzing, sparks flying. Her body jerked once as a wire connected to her collar. "But she didn't flinch," Cray grunted. "She's tougher than most humans I know," Leo nodded. "She's more human than they'll ever understand." An hour passed, then two. Finally, Cray stepped back, wiping sweat from his forehead. "It's done," he said. "But it's risky. If I hit the wrong wire, it'll shut her down." Mira looked at Leo, her voice calm. "I trust you." He placed his hand over hers. "I'll be right here." Cray flipped the final switch, and the collar lit up like a fire. Mira gritted her teeth, her eyes wide with light. Then, with a loud pop, the collar sparked, smoked, and cracked in half. It fell to the ground. Lifeless, Mira stood, breathing hard, and touched her neck gently. No more lights, no more hum. She looked at Leo, confused, blinking like the air felt different. "I can hear my thoughts again," she whispered. Her voice was clearer now, more natural. It wasn't the machine's voice anymore, it was hers. Before they could celebrate, a distant sound filled the mountain air. Engines, many of them, coming fast. Cray grabbed his rifle. They must have tracked the collar's signal before it died. Mira looked outside, her face hard. "They're not coming to take me," she said. "They're coming to kill what they couldn't control." Leo stepped beside her. "Then let's give them something they can't handle." Myra turned to Cray. "I need power armor, weapons, anything." Cray opened a secret panel in the wall, revealing an old case. Inside was a power core, glowing and pulsing. "This was made for something bigger," Cray said. "But it'll boost whatever's left in your suit." Mira placed the core into her chest plate, and light exploded around her. Her armor reformed, sharper, brighter, more alive. She stood tall, ready. But then she did something unexpected. She turned to Leo, removed part of her shoulder plate, and handed it to him. "This will protect you," she said. "My name is printed inside, proof that I chose you." He looked at it, heart pounding. "Mira," he whispered. She smiled softly. "Now I know who I am." The mountain shook as the ships arrived, black and cold like death. Soldiers dropped onto the trail, weapons raised, voices shouting. Mira stepped into the open, light glowing from every part of her. She didn't growl this time, she didn't speak threats. She just stood there uncheckable. And when the first shot came, she didn't dodge. She moved forward, into the fire, not as a weapon, not as a project, but as someone who had chosen to protect. And far behind her, Leo watched, holding the armor plate to his chest, knowing she wasn't just fighting for herself now. She was fighting for the future she never thought she could have. The sky above the mountain turned red as the ships lowered from the clouds. Wind whipped across the cliffside, and the noise of engines drowned every sound. Leo stood behind a broken rock wall, clutching the piece of armor Mira had given him. Her name was carved inside, not a number, not a code, just Mira. She stood alone in the clearing, bright against the storm. The soldiers formed a line, weapons raised, armor thick, orders clear. A voice echoed from the lead ship, calm and cruel. "Subject 17, stand down. Return for deactivation." Mira didn't move, didn't flinch. She raised her head and spoke. "Clearly, I am not your subject." The words struck like thunder. The commander gave the order, and the sky lit up with fire. But Mira didn't run. She dashed forward, straight into the storm, armor glowing white with power. Every step sent a shockwave through the ground. Bullets bounced off her suit like raindrops on steel. She reached the front line in seconds, striking. Like lightning, she disarmed without killing, knocked them down without hate. She moved with control, not rage. Leo watched from the rocks, heart pounding, eyes wide. She wasn't like anyone he had ever seen. She wasn't fighting to win, she was fighting to protect something bigger. Behind the battle, the commander stepped from his ship. A tall man in a black coat, holding a strange device. He pressed a button, and Mira froze in place. The crystal in her chest plate flickered, the light dimming fast. The device was old tech built long ago when they first made her. Leo saw her drop to her knees, gasping, armor cracking again. She looked back, eyes meeting his. She was trying to say something, but no words came out. The commander walked closer, smiling. "You were never free," he said. "Just broken." Leo couldn't take it. He jumped from the rocks and ran, shouting, "Leave her alone." The commander turned, surprised. "Another one of her pets?" he said coldly. Leo reached Mira and held her hand. The light in her armor pulsed again. "Just once," she whispered. "It hurts." He looked at the device in the commander's hand, then at the crystal in her chest. He remembered Cray's words. The heart is linked to her mind. If the control signal was breaking her ... maybe it could be broken too, without thinking. Leo pulled out the armor plate she gave him. He pressed it to the crystal, and for a second, nothing happened. Then the crystal glowed bright, so bright it burned white. A shockwave exploded from Mira's chest, knocking Leo backward. The control device shattered in the commander's hand. Mira stood up, fully awake. The chains were gone. She turned to the commander, eyes like fire. "This is the last time you control me," she said. He raised his weapon, but she caught it and crushed it with one hand. She didn't hurt him. She just looked at him and said, "You lost me the day I met him." The soldiers, still standing, lowered their weapons one by one. They had seen what she was, what she chose to be. Not a weapon, not a mistake, but a protector. The ships left before dawn. No one chased her anymore. No more warnings, no more orders, just silence and smoke, fading into peace. Leo sat on the edge of the cliff, legs dangling over the side. Mira joined him, now out of armor, dressed in simple clothes Cray had given her. He looked at her and smiled. "So ... what now?" She looked at the sky, eyes soft. "I don't know," she said. "I've never had a choice before." He nodded. "Well, now you do." She looked at him, quietly, then reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. It was an old, empty fries box, folded carefully into a perfect square. She placed it in his hand and said, "This ... was the start of everything." He laughed softly. "Yeah, just some fries," she smiled. But this time it wasn't small or sad. It was warm, real. "You shared your food," she said, "and I shared myself." They sat in silence, two souls. Once broken, now healing, and far away from battles, commands, and cages. They finally had something no one could take, freedom and each other.